All right, I'm going to put both alignment and proximity into this video. So let's get started. I'm going to start first with proximity, but I want to emphasize again that none of these are done completely separate from each other. They're usually all connected together. So with this is just another drinking from the fire hose. Try to get some of the information and understand what's going on, but then the awareness of these things is going to help you in your designs in the future. So with proximity, it has a lot of similarity to repetition, and it also has some similarity to alignment in that you're looking at ways to unify things. So let's take a look. Proximity is about grouping like items together. The problem with having all things together without incorporating C in crap is it really is hard to see what you want us to focus on. So one of the key things with proximity is it does help you to create beautiful white space, which is amazing to have. And it also helps you to reduce clutter. It focuses your message. It allows you to organize the information on your page or in your app or wherever you're designing this for. It helps to organize things and make it easier for the end user to understand what they should be doing with that information you're giving them. And it also helps to create structure, much like alignment does. This helps to organize and put things in its proper place. Remember, proximity, the basic idea is if it's related, keep it close together. If it's not related, push it a little further apart. The one on the left, again, abstract, but the one on the left, it's difficult to tell if these items are related to each other. But the one on the right, way easier to tell, oh, there's some relationship between those because they're lined up, they're closer to each other, they're all exactly the same size. Same kind of thing here. These are not the same size, they're not the same color, but this implies these things over here are related, or this one's definitely on the outside, that one's not related. So you can use that kind of concept to organize. Even looking at stuff for industrial design. So I mentioned before, this is not graphic design, but this was influenced by the thought of the human-centered design. Who is going to use this? If you look at something that you see on a regular basis, especially for those of you that are starting to drive, this is air conditioning and heat for a car. On this first dial, this is about, do you want it to be warm or do you want it to be cool? Do you want it on or do you want it off? So this is the first step, turning on the heat or turning on the air conditioner. The second question is on the second dial. Where do you want the air to come from? So once you've determined, is it cold air or warm air, where do you want that air to come out of? Then the third dial is, how strong do you want that air to come out? So logically, it's what kind of air do you want to have come out, or do you even want it out at all? Where do you want it to come out? And how powerful do you want it to be? This is human-centered design. It's the same thing in graphic design. You're figuring out, logically, group things in order and group them together. Looking at something like this, there is very little contrast in this. The font is all caps, which is screaming at people. On top of it, there's no real grouping of information. What day is this? How much does it cost? Where do you go? What time is it? Structuring things into first, second, and third, it's going to help you organize whatever you're designing. Decide what is going to grab people's attention. Then decide what are they going to need to know and what are the details that they need afterwards. Gallery, this is what it is, this is where it is, and oh, by the way, here's some advanced tickets and some other information. So having this empty space is called white space. It doesn't have to be the color white. It's basically just area that doesn't have your main graphics or your main text. This is so much more structured, and having the proximity of grouping the related information helps to organize the page. It also helps to calm things down a bit. Looking at something like this for a simple little masthead for a newsletter. This is for a American Association of Women Airline Pilots. That little plane's cute. I mean, it's not like a big, giant, amazing photograph, but there's no real organization to this because the information is all over the place, as opposed to doing something like this. Pulling it together and having it set up where you make one thing the main focus. It's the plane. The plane's interesting. Then the name of the plane from the cockpit. And then you group the less important or less interesting information together. Who cares what volume number it is or what number the issue is? That doesn't really matter as much to most people. So make that less important. So group it or put it in close proximity. Same kind of thing here. Decide on one big focal point. Organize the spacing. The empty space is just as important as the space you put text. This helps to create separation. It helps to group things and create relationships between things that are closer together. So the idea is it does help to organize your page. It creates that beautiful, lovely white space and helps you to create order and connections between things. And just avoid just dropping stuff onto the page and really avoid putting stuff in the center and in the corners at the same time. It makes it hard to read. All right, let's take a look while we're at it at alignment. Alignment's one of the easier ones to get your head wrapped around. So I'm just going to buzz through these, but I'm going to show you some other practical examples. So alignment. It does also help to create order, similar to the other ones that we talked about already. It helps to connect items together, and it creates a stronger cohesion between all of the elements of your page. So let's take a look at some of the hidden alignment. So looking at something like this, once again, boxes, abstract, this could be anything, but it's difficult to decide how these are connected, and there's no real sense of order. As soon as you line them up and then increase the proximity, you've got a sense of organization, and you've got an area where you feel like these are related and that this information down here is related. So good alignment is invisible. It's where you don't even notice it until we start to purposely seek it out. So let's take a look at this movie poster, or kind of a take on this movie poster. If you've ever seen Gran Torino, this one's probably a more apt name. Looking at this, movie posters. I love movies. I love looking at movie posters as well. The concept behind a movie poster is to try to draw people's attention. And there's a lot of rules and stuff that are legal reasons for having heads bigger and the text, whose name goes up top. We're not going to get into that now, but we will do, hopefully we'll have time, we'll do a project on magazine or movie posters. If not this year, in my 3-4 class. So one of the things that's here, most movie posters have a photo. They've got maybe the actor or multiple actors' names, the name of the movie, more details about who else is in the movie, who produced it, who put money up, and when that movie's coming out. Let's take a look at where the alignment is on this. Alignment is set up on a grid, and that grid is invisible, and you get to decide where it goes, but purposely finding where things line up, really useful. So to begin with, we've got everything right here lined up along this right-hand edge. All this text that's down here lining up with this text right there. A little bit slightly breaking out, but that's okay. Then over here on the left side, it's not lining that part up, but what it is doing is it's lining up with this text down here. So the name of the movie and the details credits are also lined up. Not only is that set up, but then there's also a center alignment happening here, where the text here is lining up in the center, lined up with the center of the A, and then also, and this part's subtle, that's how they determined how big to make the coming soon, was based on that center point. Wasn't there before. Once you see the lines, you can. So let's take a look at Juno. A couple things happening here. Again, repetition is happening a lot with the font sizes, but alignment is one of the key things here. All of the names, lowercase names, the sentence case names for the top ones are right there. They're all lined up evenly. They're all lined up on the baseline here at the bottom of the letters, all lined up. This part here, you can see the text is lined up with the text here, all the way down to the text there, to text, to this text, to the guy running, that little silhouette, as well as when the movie's coming out and the credits. All lined up there. This is what's known as an optical margin. We'll talk about why that's kicked out to the side at some point when we do the magazine spread. Let's line it up again, throwing in here. The J for Jason Bateman is lining up right down here with the J for Juno, which is also lining up right down here with when the movie is coming out. Text lined up across the top, text lined up across the bottom. All of that was done purposely. Now, for some, you'll drop it on there and you won't purposely have done that. And you'll go in and find later, oh, it's pretty close. You can be more purposeful by setting these guidelines up that are non-printing and be able to line stuff up on a grid. Looking at the same kind of thing here, stuff lined at the top, on the side, all the way from something way up here, all the way down here to the bottom, across the top line here to these small caps for the name of the San Diego car dealership. The bottom text here is lined up with the bottom of their tagline for the "We've got what it takes." And we're going to get really heavy into type. Not right now, I'm just going to buzz through this part, but type is a huge tool in communicating in graphic design. There are several different types of type alignment, and you're probably familiar with the basic ones, as well as a couple of these other ones. They just might be named a little bit different, but let's take a look at them. First one is you have what's known as flush left or left alignment. It's where the left edge is even and you've got everything flushed off to the left. You get this ragged right edge. That is, in Western society, the easiest one to read long chunks of text in. Most textbooks are left aligned. Most novels are left aligned. You've got center alignment, or a flush right alignment. It's got a ragged left edge. This one is better for shorter chunks of text, and it's not usually seen this way in Western society. In Eastern society, where you read from right to left and from top to bottom, that works better, but not in Western society. So it just depends on who your audience is as well. You have centered alignment. This is the one most people gravitate towards when they want to balance things because they don't understand how to properly use right alignment. I would try the right alignment a little bit more. Center alignment is great for short chunks of text, but it creates a ragged edge on the left and the right, which is harder to read. They've done eye studies that show when your eye gets to the end of a sentence, if it's lined up, it's easier to follow where to go next. If you have it like this, it slows the reader down when they're reading. It may not be super perceptible to you in these small chunks, but in longer pieces of information, it does slow the reader down. And then there's justified text. This is where you end up left align and right align. So a lot of students, when they first start working with this, think, well, if edges are difficult to read, and if left alignment is better for Western society and right alignment's better for Eastern society, well, why don't we just line everything up? Totally legit question. Problem happens is this. Fonts and words are, a W is wider than an I. So even if you use the same font and you use the same font size, the amount of space that each letter takes up is different depending on how the letter is constructed. Again, the letter I, super thin. Where is it? I, really thin. W, much longer. So here's what happens when you don't properly set up justified text. You get what is known as rivers. These rivers are these big gaps that the programs have to create to be able to stretch to get the paragraph columns or the lines of text to line up evenly. Those are really distracting. It creates a weird gap between things. So we're really trying to avoid rivers. This will come into play a lot when we deal with the magazine spread. Some other alignment, there's text wrap, also known as runaround. You've got asymmetric, where it's a little bit more balanced. This one's one of the trickier ones to work with. And you don't see this one too much. I don't really like this one myself very much. I find it very difficult to work with. It's this idea of concrete. It's the idea of trying to create a frame that looks like a photo. Now on here, there's a horse. There's the word horse. This is supposed to be the outline of a horse. Yeah, like I said, not my favorite. All right, so some things with alignment. Pick one and stick with it. Just kicking stuff off to one side, then playing around with proximity and a little bit of contrast, you get some organization that works a little bit better. Same kind of thing here. Everything's centered, and you got this border that's pushing everything in. Kick it off to the side. There's left alignment, that cleaned it up. Here, again, really difficult to tell where the heck is this Easter egg hunt. When is it happening? Who's invited? I can't see. Pick an alignment and then stick with it. And then even then, still quite haven't found my Goldilocks moment there. Those ears at the bottom, not really liking where the ears run across the text right there. It makes it a little hard to read. So even with that, not perfect. Just something to play with. Business card, cleaned up. Nice clean alignment. So the idea with alignment, again, is very similar to what the other ones do, which is to combine making things more unified, having it where it feels like there's actually a designer and somebody in charge putting this together, connecting things and creating a sense of order. And really, my goal and my advice right now is stick with one alignment on a page or on a screen. Try to avoid having multiple alignments. It's going to not look clean. It's going to look like you just slap stuff onto your page. And that is the last part of crap.